Hey, what's up, guys? It's Bakes here, and thank you for joining me for today's episode of my random horror reviews. And honestly, I probably should have put quotations around horror because today's movie isn't really a straight up horror. To be completely honest, there's definitely other genres I'd put at the forefront before horror with this one. It's a weird movie, and I feel like there's horrific moments, but to me, it's not a straight up horror movie. But I've seen people have it in their horror collections. I'm prepared for people in the comments to drag me through the dirt saying, what's it doing here in the random horror reviews? But yeah, sometimes, you gotta change it up and go with some, sort of horror leaning stuff that isn't quite fully horror. Like I said, I'm probably going to get some shit. I've kind of been on a stretch of that recently. Not too long ago, I did a review of Lizzie from 2018, for example, and that's more of like a drama romance thriller with some horror stuff, and it's the same here. But either way, today's movie is David Cronenberg's 1996 film titled Crash. So yeah, like I said, I've seen it on people's horror shelves before when I'm watching other YouTubers and other horror people online and whatever. The reason why I have it in my collection on my shelf is like from the very first time I saw this movie, it's just so strange and weird and bizarre. And like I said, there's some horrific moments in there, but it's just so weird. It's like, where else do you put a movie like Crash? And also think the fact that it's a film by David Cronenberg, which sometimes with directors who are known for doing horror, you sort of lump their other films into the same category, just almost subconsciously. Another example of that is like I have Robert Edgar's film The Northman on my shelf, like not really horror, but sort of has those elements. Same with Ari Aster, I have his movie Beau is Afraid, not straight up horror, but has those elements. So I don't know, I'm sick of explaining myself. We're doing Crash today, guys, so if you have a problem with that, just suck it up. I don't know, whatever. But yeah, this is a weird movie. It's uncomfortable. It's more so like an erotic thriller, drama, but as I said, horror elements. I guess we'll get into the plot for this one. This movie is about these people, kind of like this hidden society in a way, who get off on car crashes. It's like everything to do with crashes. Watching them, being in them, reliving them, even the injuries sustained from being in a crash, they just get off to it. And that's weirdly kind of it with the plot. There is a little bit more, but I think you sort of got the gist of it just from that alone. So let's move into my thoughts of David Cronenberg's film Crash from the year 1996. So like I mentioned before, if I had to label this movie as one thing in particular, I'd call it an erotic thriller. But even with that being said, this movie is extremely sexual, and obviously it's in a more disturbing and twisted way with this movie being what it's about. But there's a lot of sex scenes, a lot of sexual acts, touching, kissing, even normally innocent things are turned sexual in this movie, like putting on a seatbelt or feeling the dint on a car. Like everything is turned up to 11 with, as I said, it being sexual. So if movies that have a lot of that stuff in it make you uncomfortable, this definitely isn't going to be the movie for you. I don't find a lot of that stuff normally makes me uncomfortable, but even in this movie, it's just like, it is a lot. Honestly, this could be the most unideal movie for someone to walk in on you watching. Like, there's so many more conventionally messed up horror movies with, like, tons of gore or snuff or, like, just crazy gross shit going on. But I almost feel like I'd prefer to be caught watching them. And I use the word caught as in, not like, oh, you caught me, this is, like, a guilty pleasure or whatever. I just mean caught as in, if someone walked in on some scenes in this movie and just said, what are you watching? Like, I wouldn't know where to start. I'd just be like, what the fuck? There's one scene that comes to mind in particular. It's a sex scene, but it's extremely descriptive. And what I mean by that is a guy and a girl are getting it on, and she's asking, like, oh, what would you do if this was inside this and you could taste this? Would you enjoy this? And if he put this in, and it's so full on. Like, there's parts in this movie where you just feel like you're watching a very dramatic adult movie. That's how full on it is. And like I said, I think I'd prefer someone to come in and watch me seeing, like, a disturbing gore scene than, like, that scene there. Like, I'm just trying to think of something off the top of my head. Like, maybe not the most disturbing movie ever out there, but like I think I'd prefer someone walk in on the feeding scene in The Human Centipede than some of the scenes in this movie. Like I just wouldn't know where to start. I'd just feel so uncomfortable. But with all that being said, because I've talked a lot about the sexual nature of this movie, you might wonder, where does the horror come into this movie at all? Yes, there is horror in here. It's very unconventional, I'd say. I think the disturbingness is sort of where the horror comes in. You know, the fact that these people are getting off to this weird fetish of car accidents and people being in them and seeing them, like that does make you feel pretty uncomfortable. There's also a fair bit of body horror, which shouldn't be surprising because this is David Cronenberg. But, you know, people sustaining injuries from these crashes. There's a lot of people that you meet who have scars and wounds, and these wounds get touched and felt and moved around, and a lot of shit like that that does make you uncomfortable. There's also some really tense scenes in here, you know, with people being in car accidents. There's one in particular that comes to mind where these people reenact the crash that killed James Dean, for a crowd of people as well, and it's really tense and unsettling. It's tense because you're watching two cars go straight at each other and you just go, whoa, this is pretty full on, but it's unsettling because, as I said, it's for a crowd of people. They're reenacting a real life crash that killed someone, and the people in the crowd are turned on by it. So it is a disturbing movie, and I feel like that's where the horror elements do come into play in this movie. So for those who haven't seen this movie, this is a well-made movie in many aspects, like a great cast, all giving like super solid performances. Like we have James Spader, Holly Hunter in this movie. Like I said, it's directed by David Cronenberg, like great director in general, not just horror. So the direction's great. The film looks really good. Everything on a technical level is like outstanding with this movie. Shout out to the stunt work as well. I feel like in horror movies, you know, action movies, you always go, oh, how good was the stunt work here and blah, blah, blah. In horror and, you know, movies like this where it's like a erotic thriller and drama, you know, you have two cars going in head-on collisions, you know. Shout out to the stunt workers there. Really good. But what I feel like is the case with 75% of Cronenberg's movies, it's gonna all depend on the story and what you get from it. What I find with myself and Cronenberg's movies, firstly, I feel I should say, I don't enjoy his movies as much as majority of horror fans. I know it's almost blasphemy to say that. You know, The Fly is like the only movie of his that I truly love and adore. Like, I cannot fault The Fly at all. But for majority of his movies, I feel like I kind of get burnt out of the weirdness and trying to keep up, because mentally they are a lot, and you know, it's a lot to absorb and take in. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with weird movies, but for example, this movie, it's cars, then the cars crashing, and then sex, and then driving, and then describing all of the above, and then maybe repeating that all in a different order, or sometimes even the same order. And there is more to this movie than what I just said there. Even the plot description I gave at the start of this review was pretty bare, but what I get from this movie story-wise isn't really much more than that. And I know I'm going to have people critique me and say, oh, but this means this, and you missed this metaphor and whatever, but like, story-wise, that's all I'm really getting from it. With this movie and most of Cronenberg's stuff, there's metaphors and deeper meanings, but I feel like for Crash, I just kind of don't get it. Maybe it's a case of there's not much more to get than what I've already taken in from face value, and what my brain can comprehend just from watching it and not hearing analyses on YouTube and, you know, reading descriptions and whatever. You know, in this movie I take in the fact that there's people pushing the boundaries on desires and forever chasing the limits. And I don't know, I didn't research anything about this story or the writing ideas, and besides, I don't want to be that guy saying, oh, the movie means this and this, when really I don't know shit, and I'm just relaying what I read, you know, online and what someone else said. I'm just taking it for what it is and what I get out of it, and like I said, I don't honestly really get much from this movie, but it also doesn't mean it's a bad movie. This movie is still really good. So I'm just going to wrap this one up, because I feel like if I make this any longer than it needs to be. This is potentially a review where I'm just going to talk myself in circles and just relay the same things over and over and, jump from one thing to another. And yeah, I'm just going to ramble forever because, again, this is a good movie. It's all just going to depend on how you interpret certain things in the film and what you get out of the story. It's a well-made movie on a technical standpoint, great performances. The look of the movie's great direction. Again, it's Cronenberg. He's going to do all those things. It's just a matter of the story, which, like I said before, I feel like that's majority of the cases with Cronenberg's movies. 75% of the time it's going to depend on the story. But getting to a rating here for Crash from 1996, you know what, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Like I said, it's unsettling, it's uncomfortable, it's definitely not going to be for everybody. But there is an allure to this movie. It's something where you're watching it, and as uncomfortable as it is, like, I'm not even joking, I live alone, and during, like, that sex scene I brought up earlier, I'm looking over my shoulder like, damn, I hope, like, there's no one just coming to the door, in a second. Like, it's so weird. But, it's got this draw about it. It's got something about it that is interesting, keeps you intrigued. Like, even in the end, I feel like the movie doesn't really result too much. But it's the ride getting there, I guess. I don't know. If you have different thoughts on Crash, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'll definitely do a more traditional, straight-up horror movie in the next review, because, as I said, I've done Lizzie, I've done Crash, pretty close together in episodes, so yeah, I should do a more traditional horror movie. Maybe I'll take some recommendations soon. I don't know. Let me know what you want me to review. But thank you for joining me for this episode, guys. And I should say thank you to everyone who subscribes. I don't often say this a lot because, honestly, the subscribers don't really faze me or whatever. But I was watching someone on YouTube the other day, not even movie content. They were doing art and painting and whatever. And they were talking about, like, I only have, I forget what number she said, but I only have X amount of subscribers. And the number was lower than mine, and I really just went, whoa, like, she's doing something that's, like, takes a lot of talent, drawing and painting and doing all that stuff, and I'm like, how do I have more subscribers than her? Like, and it just really made me feel humble and grateful, and yeah, so thank you a lot for that, guys. And if you do want to subscribe, I appreciate it. It really does mean a lot to me. Like I said, I would still be doing this if I had 5 subscribers, but just knowing I'm on I think 350, something like that, yeah, it like blows my mind. Like, that's crazy to me. So thank you for all the support. Like I said, if you want to see a particular movie, let me know in the comments below. Might get around to it, might not. But thank you for joining me, guys, and I'll see you for another review soon. Peace.